All right. Well, it looks like people have stopped joining us for now. We might have a couple others trickle in as we get started, but there's a lot to cover this afternoon or this morning or this evening, depending where you're joining us from. So I'll go ahead and dive in. Welcome, first and foremost. Thank you so much for taking some time to get to know MIT Sloan and these three specific early career programs that we'll talk about. Let's see. Great. So as I mentioned, today specifically, we'll be talking about opportunities to launch your career at MIT Sloan through one of our three early career options. My name is Stephanie Butler. I'm an assistant director at Sloan in the admissions office, and I'm joined by my colleague who will introduce herself as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Kayon Ellis. I'm also a member of the admissions team, recruiting with a special focus on these early career programs, especially our early MBA students.
Yeah. Likewise, I get the pleasure of focusing on these early career programs as well. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. I'll be presenting today and addressing some questions that you submitted in advance. Hopefully, I folded a lot of that into the content of the presentation. I'll address some others at the end. As we go along, Kayon will be helping out in the Q&A function by answering as many of your questions as she can get to, and also sort of earmarking some for me to answer verbally at the end. So please utilize the Q&A should other questions come up as we go along. I thought it would be great to get started just by sort of addressing something that is on everyone's mind lately, and that's COVID-19. And often this is a very sort of sad conversation, but I just wanted to shine some light on some of the really positive, impactful things that our faculty in particular are doing to address various concerns and challenges that have risen because of the pandemic. So the COVID-19 Policy Alliance, which is a group of professors who provide data-driven and practical advice to government decision makers. We have Professor Pentland, who is studying ways to shift people who are perhaps immune into customer-facing roles while protecting those who are more vulnerable through back office roles. Professors Shore and Parker are helping policymakers to better help small businesses and the economy overall. And then finally, Professor David Rand is studying ways to encourage people to be more careful about the information they share. So this is just a small snapshot. I encourage everyone to dig in a little bit more to these particular initiatives as well as others that are happening at MIT and MIT Sloan and are being driven by members of our community. So I think not only does this sort of touch on the thought leadership of our faculty and how impactful they are to the greater world, but I think it also is a great introduction to our mission at MIT Sloan. So our mission at the MIT Sloan School of Management is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. The faculty that we just discussed are great examples of how, this is really something that is, we don't only say, but we act upon, and it's part of the way we live at MIT Sloan. So here's a quick glance at our portfolio of programs. Today, as noted, we are focusing on those three at the left-hand side of this chart, those which are intended for people with very little work experience. And then all the way at the right-hand side, you'll see we have a couple programs who are intended for those much later in their career with a different set of experiences, right? And so the reason I think it's important to see this entire range is that as a business analytics student, a finance student, or even an MBA student, you will be in elective classrooms with people from across these programs. You will be participating in clubs and conferences and other activities around campus with people who have had a variety of experiences, both professional and personal, that is only going to add to the learning and growth that you'll get while you're in one of these programs. So most students who are looking into these three programs are looking from a career perspective. They are hoping to advance their career and sort of kick it off in a really rewarding way. And so while that might be the end goal, there's a number of things that all of these programs have in common that will help get you there. So academic excellence, a world-renowned faculty, hands-on action learning, and the MIT experience are all characteristics that will be valuable to you regardless of which program you decide to apply to. So I'll start there with the MIT experience. As the world, becomes increasingly interconnected, technology and data-driven decisions has never been more important and will continue to be, right? As regardless of what industry you're interested in, regardless of what function, what geographical area you are interested in working in, those things are going to be so important. And so that's why I think MIT Sloan is uniquely positioned and is uniquely advantageous to business students as MIT's management school. So you as a Sloan student will be encouraged to engage and collaborate with initiatives and with people across the Institute. And likewise, you'll see other students from across MIT, participating in MIT Sloan courses and programs because we understand how this interdisciplinary collaboration is really the way to solve some of these complex problems. So as you think about Sloan specifically, I know multiple people actually sort of wrote in wondering what a Sloan student was like or what the community and culture was like. And I'd say Sloan students are really excited about innovation, and they are aware enough to understand that they can't solve those complex problems and can't, be completely sort of innovative and creative in their problem solving all on their own. So I'd say, the attitude that is so pervasive at Sloan is one of humility and of collaboration and of support. And so as you continue researching programs and the school itself, a phrase that you will likely start to hear often is Sloanies helping Sloanies. And this is really indicative of how supportive they are to one another as you sort of go through this, 12 months to 2 years of intense growth and exploration. So just as important, I'd say, as the classroom experience is what you will learn outside of the classroom. And ways you will engage outside of the classroom. And a big part of this is clubs, forums, events, conferences. I included here just a very brief snapshot of some of the opportunities that you'll have to engage with various industries and areas of interest. Again, this is a sampling of our professional opportunities, but we also have opportunities to engage with others around identity and affinity groups, for example, SWIM or Sloan Women in Management. We have BBSA or Black Business Students Association. We have Sloan Pride, which is a group for LGBTQ students and their allies. We also have social clubs, so a great way to develop relationships with other students from across Sloan who are interested in similar topics as you are. So I talked about a little bit about the opportunities across MIT as a Sloan student. And so certainly as a Sloan student, you are also an MIT student and an MIT alum eventually as well. So our alums are spread across the world. Just Sloan alums alone are in 90 plus countries, and there's over 129 active alumni groups. So not only are MIT alumni diverse in their areas of interest and professions and geographies, but they're also incredibly entrepreneurial. So I'd say as a student, even if you are not interested in entrepreneurship as a career, or at least right after graduation, I think many of our students are interested in taking advantage of some of the opportunities on campus just to dip their toes in that water and see what it's all about. As you can see, some of our alums actually did pursue entrepreneurship as a career. In fact, when you look at MIT alums, there's currently over 30,000 active companies founded by MIT alumni, which have created 4.6 million jobs and generated $2 trillion in total annual revenue. So that is pretty incredible when you think about it, especially as compared to some actual sort of nations and countries out there. We stand up pretty well. So diving into the programs a little bit more specifically, so starting with the Master of Business Analytics, one of our 2 specialized master's programs. This program is intended to be a deep dive into data science. And what I'd say really sets this program apart from some other programs that might look similar on the surface is this is really a partnership between MIT's Operations Research Center. And so there's that focus on developing the actual tools of data science, of optimization, of machine learning, and then MIT Sloan. And so the management school and the Operations Research Center together offer you not only the tools to do the data science, but also the ability to interpret it and to apply it and to communicate it to decision makers, many of whom are not nearly as skilled technically as you are. So that gives you a real advantage in the workplace. So we developed this program about 4 years ago, really to answer a significant demand for people who had this particular skill set. And our class size currently, the target is around 60 people. So it's a relatively small program, a great opportunity to build significant connections with your classmates in addition to other Sloan students. I mentioned it's 12 months. It starts in the fall, so it runs September to August. So you'll start the program again in September with a required core curriculum. You can see some of the courses offered there. Sorry, it's a little jammed there in the winter, but you'll see you'll start taking elective courses. There's also IAP, which we'll talk about in reference to some other programs, but that's a specific program at MIT specifically, where you'll spend the month of January focused on sort of curriculum, maybe outside of the specific academic area that you're pursuing. So we can talk about that a little bit more later. And then as an MBA student in the spring, you'll move on to some elective courses. Here is a small sampling of what is available to you. And you'll also start working on your capstone. So the capstone is a huge, another differentiator to this program, and I'd say one of the biggest assets. It is essentially a 7-month internship. So you and another classmate will be working directly with a real company on a real problem and using data to solve that and to provide recommendations for them. During the spring term, you'll be working with them remotely, and as well as your partner, you'll be doing some sort of foundational work. And then in June to August, this is essentially an internship where you will be on site with that company, COVID aside. So that is a great opportunity to actually get some hands-on experience. The other huge benefit to the Capstone project is there is a tuition offset. So every single MBAN student receives about $20,000 toward their tuition as an offset for participating in the Capstone. The Master of Finance is also a very rigorous and quantitative program. So this is an 18-month program, so essentially a year and a half. There is a 12-month fast track for those who want to or need to, for various reasons, kind of move through the program a little bit more quickly, or maybe you're coming in with a little bit more experience. The 18-month does allow you an opportunity for an internship, which we'll touch on in the next slide. This is a flexible curriculum. Even within finance, there's a lot of variety. It's a deep dive into a lot of quantitative finance areas. And then there's also an action learning opportunity here. Kind of the premier opportunity for Master of Finance students is the Finance Lab, which was previously called the Finance Research Practicum. If anyone's been researching the MFin program for a little while, you might have heard it referred to as that. There's also extensive career resources, as there are for all of our programs. MFin concentrations optional. So as an MFin student, if you want to put a little bit more focus in a certain area, or perhaps give yourself a credential, you could choose to focus your elective courses on capital markets, corporate finance, or financial engineering. So here is a quick look at what your academic calendar would look like. So in this program, you start in the summer, so in July, with some core courses. You would move into the fall with some additional core courses. January, again, that's that sort of unique independent activities period at MIT. Many MFin students actually take part in action learning opportunities during IAP. It's a great time for that, whether it's the Finance Lab or one of our pro seminar opportunities, either in capital markets or corporate finance. Finally, moving into the spring, if you are an 18-month student, which most of our students are, you would go on to a practical training internship in June through August. And then finally coming back to campus for one more term to finish your degree requirements and take any additional electives. We do have some students opt to write a master's thesis as well. So one important thing to note for all of these programs actually is that they are STEM eligible. And then finally, the MBA program. So today we're talking a little bit more specifically about Mba Early, that track to the MBA program as an undergraduate student. But I thought I would take a step back and talk kind of what it is an MBA period. I know a lot of people, you hear those letters, you hear about the degree, but it's a little bit, it can be a little bit ambiguous. So there is an intense amount of, or immense amount of value in this traditional two-year full-time program. I think, you know, the opportunity to gain, you know, develop relationships with people, that immersive experience when you actually step away from the workplace for a couple of years and really dedicate your time to personal and professional growth, to developing those relationships, to building a skill set. So much value there. Other advantages include a high level of flexibility. So unlike the specialized master's programs where you have some degree of flexibility, but they're a little bit more focused and a little bit more technical, with the MBA, you have a lot of flexibility, opportunities for breadth and depth. Most students in the MBA program really sort of use it as a springboard in their career to take it to the next level, or most often actually to pivot into a new industry or function. Huge focus on developing leaders. That's a big part of the MBA. Some of you asked about the difference between our specialized master's programs and the MBA. I alluded to it just a couple of seconds ago. The specialized master's programs are a little bit more technical in nature. You would become more of a technical expert. As an MBA graduate, you would likely look for more of a leadership role, even if it's within those industries. So something a little bit more general management in nature. And then building a network. So this is a great opportunity to develop relationships with people who are going to be great sources of support and connection throughout your career. Our target class size at MIT Sloan is 350, which compared to many of our peers is a little bit on the smaller side, which I think just allows you more advantages or more opportunities for that relationship development and more access. So with fewer people competing for attention and time and opportunities, I think there's a lot of value there. You will also be joined by about 50 LGO students, which you can see on the right-hand side. That is a partnership, a very integrated dual degree with our School of Engineering at MIT. You also have the option of doing a dual degree with DUS, or the Department of Urban Studies and Planning, or Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. And we'll talk a little bit about how that works into the deferred admission process later on. So MBA Early Admission. So essentially MBA Early Admission is an opportunity to apply to Sloan's MBA program as an undergraduate senior or perhaps as a grad student who hasn't yet received work experience. And if admitted, then you would go on and work full-time in a professional capacity for between 2 to 5 years before coming back to Sloan and beginning your MBA. So that 2 to 5 years is incredibly important. You might have seen in the earlier slide on the portfolio programs that fall sort of right in the range of our MBA students. Having work experience before starting an MBA program is going to provide you a lot of great context and a frame of reference to draw from as you are sitting in the classroom and learning how to apply various concepts. It will also allow you to be a better contributor. You will be a better classmate and also get more out of the discussion by being able to participate. So that work experience is really important, and we do require it from our MBA Early Admin. So if an MBA is in your 5-year plan, definitely a no-brainer. The guaranteed place in a future MIT Sloan class allows you a little bit of career flexibility. So yes, you do have to have a full-time professional type role for those 2 to 5 years, but you might feel a little more emboldened to take some chances and to try new things that you might not have felt before. No application stress while working full-time. So while it certainly feels like you're busy now as a college student, I know not having to worry about the GMAT or the GRE or reaching out to recommenders as someone who's working full-time and living a life besides that can be really valuable. And finally, you're a better test taker now than you'll be in the future. So highly encourage you to take either the GMAT or the GRE while you're still in school. You not only are closer to the actual concepts that might be covered, you've been exposed to them more recently, but you're also more likely to have better study habits and to sort of know what works for you from a test-taking perspective. So here's a quick look at the MBA curriculum, which is both flexible and hands-on. We do have a 1-semester core at MIT Sloan. These are courses that we know will be valuable to every single MBA student, regardless of what industry or function that you're interested in. So that's why we require this core semester. And then after IAP, you will begin taking electives. And so it's entirely up to you after that core, what you choose to spend your time on. We have over 200 electives right at Sloan. We have several action learning labs, which is sort of our hallmark experiential learning opportunity. And you can even take up to 3 grad level courses outside of Sloan, either elsewhere at MIT or through one of Harvard's professional schools. And then at the end of your first year, during that summer, you will participate in an internship, whether that's traditional or at a startup, or perhaps, working on a startup of your own. In the second year, again, it's entirely elective based, so it's up to you. We do recognize that some people want a little bit of structure or perhaps a credential. So we do offer tracks, which have, a list of requirements that you must fulfill to graduate with one of these tracks: entrepreneurship and innovation, enterprise management, which is more of a general management type focus, and then finance, and certificates as well in analytics, healthcare, and sustainability. So that's a great way to add a little bit of structure. Certificates have fewer requirements than tracks, so you can, as you get closer to the experience, you can think a little bit about how you want to balance those, if at all. These are certainly not required. These are not majors that you must declare. They are options. So we already talked about some of our faculty as it pertained to COVID, and that's a great example, I think, of some of the great things they're doing. I encourage you to explore faculty and their research and what they're involved in on campus, especially as it pertains to the particular academic area that you're interested in. What I do want to point out on this slide, though, is kind of in the corners. And so in the bottom right, you'll see Robert Merton, who actually won a Nobel Peace Prize for his work in derivatives. And then in the top left, I love that you can't even see the face of the faculty there. I think this is a great sort of example of the dichotomy of our faculty at Sloan. Not only are they thought leaders in their industry, not only are they making huge differences outside of Sloan, but they're also making differences at Sloan as well and in the lives of our students, whether it's in the classroom providing guidance outside of the classroom. I mentioned action learning. So this really is a big piece of MIT Sloan and MIT more broadly. Actually, MIT's motto, Mens et Manus, means mind and hand. So essentially, we believe that it's not enough just to sit in that classroom or to read a textbook or to learn in a traditional way, but you really need to put those concepts into practice. And so these are some of the opportunities, just sort of a snapshot within each program of ways to get involved and to actually work with real companies on real problems. And rewarding careers. So we started our conversation talking a little bit about this, and I want to go into it a little bit more, but encourage you to explore on your own as well. There's a significant number of career resources available to you as a Sloan student, as well as employment reports that will give you a look at just the success of our students and alums as well. So here's some of the ways that our career development office will support you. Career fairs and treks. You have a dedicated career advisor. So not only do each of these programs have dedicated career advisors, but you yourself will have one as well to meet with on an individual basis. We understand that there is not a one-size-fits-all model that can be taken for everyone's career search. So our career advisors approach that and approach you on a very sort of person-to-person basis. There's Career Core. So this is something very unique to MIT Sloan, kind of in tandem with the academic core. At Sloan, you will also have a career core, which will be foundational to your career exploration and recruiting. There's on-campus recruiting opportunities. There's also a lot of support for off-campus recruiting opportunities, particularly those who are interested in more niche areas or smaller companies who don't hire large classes of students. There's a lot of opportunity to interact with those companies and to build relationships and to find career and internship opportunities. For example, networking with alumni and employers. So, for example, there is a large analytics fair every winter where dozens of employers come to campus specifically to meet with Sloan students. And then alumni, you saw kind of the impact, the size of our alumni community. They also are very willing to sort of continue with that Sloanies helping Sloanies motto and have informational phone calls about what it's like to work in a particular space, about what their company is like, you know, maybe making introductions to others that will support you in your career search. A quick look at some of the roles our business analytics graduates take on and some of the companies that they've joined. 100% of these students have job offers at graduation. So this is reflecting last year's class, of course, because it runs until September. We don't have data yet for this year's class, but stay tuned for that. I'm going to move pretty quickly through this, but again, I encourage you to go to each one of these programs has a specific employment report, which will break out the various places that people go, salaries that they're being paid, geographies that they're going to. Master of Finance, again, some great success stats here. So 100% of 2019 graduates and interns gave us data, so this is incredibly accurate. 72% received offers in the US. I know this is very important to many of our international students. 100% completed internships, and 61% accepted return full-time offers from their internship employer. I think that's great and really sort of makes a strong case for the benefits of that 18-month option. Again, some sample roles that our MFin graduates take on, in addition to some of the companies that they've joined. I'll pause here, but again, encourage you to take a look at the employment report for the most comprehensive version of this. And then finally, Mba Careers. So our graduates go into a number of different industries and functions. At the top of that is consulting, technology, and finance. I don't think that will surprise anyone. And within those, of course, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of different roles that one can take within each of those fields. So do dig a little bit deeper. What to point out here. So I think 6.7 started a business right after graduation. I think that's pretty high when you think about it. This doesn't even include people who are interested in or might choose to start a business afterward, you know, down the line a little bit, or those who decided to join early stage companies. Very entrepreneurial approach as well. 73.5 offers came via a school facilitated activity. So students are really leaning on those opportunities and those resources and that support from people across Sloan. That could be the Career Development Office. It could be a professional club that provides programming that brings in people from the industry. It could be from an alumni connection. So there's a lot of ways that you might be introduced to a potential career opportunity. So there's a lot of questions about the application process, and so we'll certainly talk about that a bit. For the MBAN and MFin programs, this is a sample of the components from last year and will probably most likely be very similar to this year's application as well. The essay and short answer questions really give us an opportunity to get to know kind of your motivations, your previous experiences, why you think you'd be a good fit for this program, and your motivations for pursuing it. 3 recommendation letters, 1 academic, 1 professional, 1 is your choice. Academic transcripts, these are really rigorous programs. All 3 are, and particularly the specialized master's programs as it pertains to quantitative skill sets. So we are going to see not only how well you did overall, but also how well you did in some specific quantitative courses. The GMAT or GRE, it's totally up to you which one you take. For these programs, we do ask for all non-US citizens who did not graduate from their undergraduate program, wasn't entirely taught in English or in an English-speaking country. You must submit a TOEFL or an IELTS score. 2 video questions. One has been randomized and gives us an opportunity to see how you think on your feet. The other simply asks you to introduce yourself to your classmates and gives us an opportunity to see kind of who you are off the paper, who you are as a person, and how well you communicate. Invitations or interviews are required and are by invitation only. We can talk about that later. Deadlines. So these programs don't have deadlines until the beginning of January, so there's plenty of time to prepare a strong application and continue asking great questions. We'll have some more sessions available to dive more deeply into the application. For Mba Early Admission, again, we have plenty of time to start crafting a great application. August or April 20th, 2021 is when this deadline will hit for those graduating in 2021. Some of it looks similar. The video statement for this is the introduction. We do not require the TOEFL or IELTS for this program. And instead of an essay, we do ask that you write a cover letter, sort of, you know, instead of applying to a particular job, you are applying to a seat in MIT Sloan's MBA class. So there's time to talk about this application process in more detail as you know, rising seniors decide to or approach your senior year. You know, continue getting great grades, you know, continue developing relationships with faculty members or internship employers that might make good recommenders, and continue, you know, stretching yourself and taking on leadership roles and working in teams and other things that will support your candidacy. So that is, I know that was super brief about the application processes and applications themselves. They will hopefully go live in August sometime, and more to come on that when they do. So I'm going to take some questions. I know we're a little bit short on time. You guys had some great questions. I'll see. Let me take a quick look in the
Actually, Stephanie, while I have you, and you just talked about the application process, one common question is, can students do both or 2 of these different programs? Can you talk about what that would look like and the differences in the application process? For instance, the TOEFL required for MFin, but not for the MBA Early program.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer is yes. You can apply for multiple programs. Really, all of the combinations are good. So we have some people who apply for both the Master of Business Analytics and the Master of Finance program, and are, you know, sometimes admitted to one or the other, sometimes admitted to both, sometimes, you know, neither. But what I'd say about that is it might make a sense for you to do so, but really be thoughtful about, you know, for yourself, and also as you're crafting the application, you know, why is it that I want to apply to both of these programs, what makes most sense for me and the career that I'm looking to pursue. Regarding the MBA, I think an MBA is a fantastic complement to a more technical background. So these are intended to be early career programs, meaning that most of our specialized master's students actually begin the program directly after undergrad. So there's a great opportunity, I think, to pursue the MPhil program directly after undergrad. Is sort of a fifth year of that experience. And then, either apply to Mba Early Admission as a college senior or during MPhil. And if admitted, then you have this opportunity to work for 2 to 5 years, utilizing that skill set that you built as that finance specific skill set, come back to the MBA program and really focus on leadership and how you might start becoming a leader of the technical people in your workplace, and how you can or you might want to pivot at that point. So yes, I think the MBA can be a great complement to a more technical program. Absolutely. So absolutely, yeah, you can apply more than once. And so some of the differences in the application process, again, it's just really based on what those programs all are about. For example, we want our specialized master's applicants and students to be more quantitatively inclined than is relevant for the MBA program. You are required to take part in more quantitative courses and in a more sort of rigorous way than you would be in the MBA program, or you would have to be. You might choose to be quite quantitative during the MBA program, but it's not sort of as core to the experience. And Can, feel free if you have other questions that have come up a lot. I'm going to scroll through.
Sure. I had a few future MPhil students asking about the 12 months versus the 18 months. When do they have to make that decision? Things like that.
Yep. Great question. So we will ask for that in your application. There might be a little bit of flexibility around that after admission, but the program does start in July, and so it's important that we know pretty early on. So we will ask in your application, and not that there's no going back, but it's something I encourage you to give some thought to early on. For example, I don't think it would be an option for you to suddenly say come spring of your year, and as a 12-year student or 12-month student, and suddenly decide, oh, I'd love to do an internship and come back in the fall. So we do need some advance notice.
There's been a few clarifying questions about Masters of Finance versus Masters of Business Analytics. Can you maybe talk about the characteristics that differentiate these students, how to choose if you're interested in both?
Yeah, sure. So, while there might be some overlap in material and in the academic electives that you choose, the MPhil program really is a deep dive into finance, and that could be, you could focus on quantitative finance and financial engineering and make it really data driven, but ultimately the focus is on finance and financial services, and you would likely for a career be looking at a lot of those organizations. For the Master of Business Analytics, the skill set that you would be developing is a little bit more applicable across industries. For example, you might have seen we have several people graduating and pursuing careers in healthcare analytics. We have a lot of retail consulting firms, some financial institutions. So I'd say there's probably a little bit more breadth and variety sort of from an industry perspective between the Master of Finance and Master of Business Analytics. So I know there was some questions maybe about TOEFL and the IELTS, and yes, so you must have graduated from, you know, I know there's some distinctions on the website, and it just simply based on our experience and what we found makes the most successful students once you arrive on campus. We will not only be sort of evaluating English speaking abilities from those test scores, it's only one part of it. We'll also be able to see that throughout your application and then verbally through the video. And if you make it to this part of the application process through the interview as well. So I know we're kind of hitting the time to finish and maybe actually a few minutes over. So thank you for your patience. I know this was a lot of information to think about, but really this was intended just to be an initial overview of what these programs are about. I highly encourage you to stay connected with Kayon and I and the rest of the admissions team and the community at MIT Sloan. You see on the screen the email addresses. Those are great for some questions that you might have, but I also encourage you to continue looking for other events. We'll start now to dive more specifically into specific programs. We're also doing a great series around the student experience at MIT Sloan, which is applicable to all programs. So we recently had a presentation on entrepreneurship. We're doing others on healthcare and sustainability. And we'll also have some upcoming events the week of August 10th around some of our affinity populations at Sloan. So do stay in touch. The last thing I'll mention is for some of these more specific questions or just general questions where you want to ask in a small, intimate environment, we have virtual coffee chats coming up. Many of you might have already attended one, but a great opportunity just to connect with someone from our team in kind of a small group setting. So thank you so much for joining me for this initial introduction to our early career programs at MIT Sloan. I look forward greatly to staying in touch with all of you and hopefully learning more about you through your application in January or April. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.